back of the rim. Got it! Oh, the slam! Oh, here's a Curry way downtown. Oh, what a shot from Curry!
Russell Westbrook. Russ. I believe that this is one of the last chances, this opportunity with the Lakers, this is one of the last chances he's going to get to significantly change his placement in NBA history. The way people think about him, the way people rank him, I don't see there being a better chance in this, and I don't see there being many more, because say he didn't win with the Lakers and he went on to, I don't know, maybe one day take a smaller role on a team like Dwight Howard did, something like that. Does that significantly change your placement in NBA history? Not quite. I mean, it gets you a championship, that's worth it, that's worth something, but Dwight Howard winning on the Lakers does not affect him the way it would have winning on the Magic or winning on the Rockets or winning on the Lakers the first time. So now Russ is a number 3, right? So it's already not the same as when he was a number 2. He's never been a number 3. At worst, he's been the second best player on any team he's been on, and now he's solidly behind Anthony Davis and LeBron James. No debates about that. Still, if you can win a championship here, despite people saying it's a super team or it's stacked, whatever the case may be, well, I'm assuming they would have to beat the Brooklyn Nets to, well, if they're healthy and if Kyrie is gonna be playing this season, yeah, they probably have to knock them off, so it'd still be worth something. And B, people have enough questions about this Lakers team, and specifically Russ's placement on it, that it would be impressive. And that's one of the things where I talk about Russ's placement in NBA history. It's just the fact that as a point guard, when he joins a new team, or when that team is contending like it was in OKC all those years, Russell Westbrook is always one of the main questions. It really shouldn't be like that as a point guard. You should not come into looking at a title team saying, hey, does that point guard make good enough decisions? Does he shoot well enough? Is his shot selection good enough? Those are all things you never want to have to ask about a championship point guard, yet with Russ, I guess we always have. It was like that when he got traded to Houston and he's fitting with James Harden, and you immediately ask, well, how does this work when Harden has the ball? Can't you just leave Russell Westbrook alone? Then the bubble happened, and lo and behold, they left Russell Westbrook alone. I'm never gonna forget that picture. There's other things that went into it. He wasn't really healthy by that point, COVID, yada yada. Still, the thing that we worried about happening when he first went to that team happened right before he left that team. You take it back to the OKC days, there's more than enough blame to go for why it never materialized. It was the front office and management letting James Harden go, that wasn't good. Kevin Durant did not play well at the end of the 2016 series when it was time to close out the Warriors. Sure, there's many ways you can go with that, whatever, but one of the main things we always wondered was, hey, is there something better for Kevin Durant out there? Because he and Russ are one of the, if the not most talented duo in the NBA at any given time. They're explosive, they can win tons of games during the regular season, but when it comes down to it and the game is on the line, or a series is on the line, is there somebody better that KD could be playing with to get them over that hump? Of course, we figured out that there was. He went to go play with Steph. Yeah, he went to go play with Clay and Draymond too. He went to go play as a part of what we thought was going to be the greatest team of all time. And then he went there and made them that. Anyways, that's something different. He left Russ, and as expected, anybody would fit better with Steph, but he fit a lot better with Steph. And I think there was one play in 2016, it's Steph's ankle game or the shot, whichever one we're referring to it as. It happened in succession. Westbrook took some wild shot that, I don't know if it touched the rim or whatever, but it was something wild that you would expect from Westbrook at the end of games. And then Steph took it and shot it from nearly half court and won. Now, that told us things we already knew. Steph's a better shooter, blah, blah, blah. He's always been a better point guard. But I don't know, there's just something about those happening back to back that kind of, to me, told the story of Russ's career when it comes to him being great. But just I don't know if I want to say a whole tier below championship point guards, but like he's maybe had his foot at the door, but he's just not quite there. That play kind of summed it up for me. And I think that's how we'll remember him if they don't figure it out here. Because is that not how we think of him? When you hear his name, or at least for me, right? I think of a great point guard that can go get you stats, and he's one of the most athletically gifted players ever, one of the most gifted players ever, period, especially at the point guard position. And he plays hard every single game. I don't think I've ever seen him take a single play off. That might work against him because sometimes it seems that he's only working at one pace or one speed, and specifically when you're late in games, I think that's worked against him in many examples like the one I just showed with the Warriors game. But despite all that, when I'm thinking about a championship point guard or a guy to elevate your team or to really get you over that hump, Russ is always just right below that. What also illustrates this, 2017. After Kevin Durant left, I think people forget that we looked at the Thunder and said, oh, that's a lottery team, or that team's not even getting close to the playoffs in the West. And then they made it and he won MVP. That's why I've never been on the camp of discrediting that MVP, because we did not think that OKC team was going to get close to winning how many games they did. Russ was the main factor behind that, and that team didn't even fit him. People try to go back and look at the names that were on that squad like an Oladipo or Sabonis, not realizing that they were nowhere near where they are now with their development, or where they've gotten to. That 2017 Thunder team had no business being where it was. And he was great for that. He was great for elevating that specific type of team and getting all the stats in the world and the triple-double. He was great for that. Then they got him help the next year. So 2018 and 2019, look, the Thunder were never expected to go anywhere. Kevin Durant's Warriors were a thing, so nobody was expected to go anywhere, not named Golden State. Still, with Paul George, I have a video on my channel saying that's going to be the most forgotten duo ever. How many reminiscent Twitter posts have you seen about Paul George and Westbrook? How many times have you seen, oh, this duo was fire? 10 fire emojis. People sleep on this duo. How many times have you seen that? You haven't seen it once. Everything I said in that video was right. Every single thing I said in that video was right. Nobody talks about it. It's because they went out in the first round twice. Sure, they didn't have to beat the Warriors. They were never going to, but they went out in the first round to Donovan Mitchell, rookie Donovan Mitchell. Westbrook shot 40% in that series. Then they went out to Lillard in one of the more soul-crushing game winners we've ever seen. Series enders. Hell, wasn't that? Oh yeah, no, there was another series ender. It was the one that Damian Lillard hit a couple of years before that. Being that was his rival and he had talked so much shit to him throughout the season, it wasn't a good look. So that's another first round exit. And it seems like that's what you have with Russ is looking back in his past, it's teams that maybe should have done more than they did and they just didn't. So you go to his Washington year last year. I think that was the first time that he was on a squad that didn't have any clear intent. It was the first, it was one of the few times. 2017 Thunder didn't have any intent. And then you could say the early OKC days, they were rebuilding or they were building. So they had intent. Yeah, Washington is just trying to formulate some plan to keep Bradley Beal. I don't really know what's ever going on there. Nobody does. Either way, he was there to get his stats and win some games. He did both. They made it to the playoffs. It was a question of whether they would. They started off terribly and I think he became the biggest reason that they did make it, or one of them at least. So that's cool, but we knew it wasn't going to last because they have to figure something out. They either have to move forward or one day they're going to lose Beal. You're not moving forward with Russ on that contract. That's how you get him in LA. Now, again, in LA, where are the questions right now with this team? They just stacked up. They sign a new player every damn day. I don't know how many roster spots they have, but aside from the jokes about them being an old person's home or whatever, what questions do you hear? Oh, how is Russell Westbrook going to work with LeBron James? How is he going to play off ball with LeBron James? In the playoffs, when teams start sagging off of him, is what he brings them in transition going to be enough to offset that? Are they going to sag off of him? Is he going to be an improved shooter? Even though for the last 13 years, he's gotten better as a player, obviously, but he's never been that great of a shooter. So in 2021, is he automatically over this short summer going to become a much better shooter to the point that you can't sag off of him and now this works? In my opinion, Anthony Davis has to play center now. He's always said, but we've always heard this thing about him being funny with the center position. Well, bro, you got Brody at the point guard. You don't want Russell Westbrook and Dwight Howard or whoever you plan to start at center out there. You don't want to have two non-shooters. In 2021, when you can slide over to the center position and do whatever you can to make this work. So that part is on Anthony Davis, but again, it's an adjustment to Russell Westbrook. Even though AD should have been playing more 5, like forever now for the Lakers. That's a whole thing. Decision making. Russ is now on the team with a chief decision maker. LeBron has been that guy on every single team. Even when he went to the Miami Heat and he had another alpha there, that alpha said, here, this is your shit. And he did that and they won. So decision making late game, is he going to be taking crazy 3-pointers that careen off the not side of the backboard, I ain't gonna do him like that. Is he gonna be taking crazy 3-pointers at the end of the game? Is he gonna be going too quick? Is he gonna be in the right spots if he doesn't have the ball to make things easier on a LeBron James? All the questions, in my opinion, not all of them, but a majority of the questions about how this Laker experiment goes coincide with how Russell Westbrook can change his game, how he can adapt it, how he can do things that he hasn't necessarily shown that he's great at. And there are places he can help them. I think he will absolutely help them in transition. He will help them in being one of the greatest points of attack that a LeBron team, when he's on the bench, has ever had. With the ball, I'm talking about guys who actually handle the ball, so not big men. He can do a lot for them, and yet there are still many questions. So if the Lakers don't win, you start to wonder what happens, because he is on an expensive contract. LeBron James, the clock is winding down. Maybe 3 years, maybe 7. We never know with how it works with him. But still, it's not hard to see him, especially if this goes terribly wrong, it's not hard to see him being moved again. Now all of a sudden, you're put in a position where you probably have to take a different role to win some lesser championship one day. Yet, if this is successful, I believe we start talking about a different Russell Westbrook. We start having different conversations about Russ. For that point, I raise you Dirk Nowitzki in 2011. Now, this is not the same type of championship. The Lakers are that juggernaut. Dirk Nowitzki beat our juggernaut. That's why he has one of the most respected championships, but that's not the point I'm getting at. I'm bringing Dirk up because people tend to forget, or they just weren't there, that these mid-2000s conversations and going up until he won the championship, we were always going, oh yeah, Dirk, he's great, but And it was like that up until he won in 2011, and we never had that conversation again. With Russ, I think it's a lot different because, well, of course, his has been happening mostly in the social media era and many different factors. It's not a one-to-one comparison, but the conversations we have about Russ are the same. We all go, oh yeah, he's great, but it's always there. It's always there. Nobody denies, well, yeah, NBA Twitter exists. People do deny what Russ has brought to the NBA throughout his career, yeah, whatever. But for the most part, we can acknowledge that he's also one of the better players that most of us have seen, but that's always there. And if they win this year, I don't know if he has a chance to erase it, but if he were to come to this team that people had all these questions with him fitting into, and then he was able to win, especially with the Nets out there, supposedly, give or take Kyrie, I don't know. Yeah, if they were able to pull that off, now the guy who holds a triple-double record, who has just been stat stuffing this entire decade, basically, all these other great things he's done with the MVP, now he's got a meaningful championship that he played a major part in. At that point, you'll be able to say whatever you want to say. Oh, he didn't win with Kevin Durant in times that they should have, and they blew that 3-1 lead. He and Paul George disappointed. They ignored him in the 2020 playoffs. You'll be able to say all of that, but he'll have a title if this works out, and he will have had made major adjustments to play a big part in said title. So you will be able to say whatever you want about Russ when you're reminiscing on his career, but you get it. I think it's his last chance. I think it's his last chance, and I hope it works out because I have always liked Westbrook, and I would hate for it to look something like, oh, he played with Kevin Durant and KD left him. He played with Paul George and Paul George left him. Then he played with Harden, and I believe Westbrook wanted out of Houston before that, but okay, it didn't work out. Then you played with LeBron and AD, and it didn't work out. That's just, look, I raise you the thing that I've said in so many videos. Everything in life is optics. Those are not good optics. But let me know what you think. Do you think this is Russell Westbrook's last chance? How do you think it's gonna go? Do you see the Lakers answering all the questions that we have surrounding what type of play style they would be able to use to win a championship this year? Or is this gonna go how some of you probably expect it to, and the fit will be all wonky, and he'll be out of LA next year, you know, on some other team? I personally believe if Kyrie is gonna play this year and the Nets are gonna be healthy, a lot of this doesn't really matter anyways, but